Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 599 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky informed that Russia attacked an energy object in the Kherson region, southern Ukraine. According to him, all day long, power engineers and rescuers have been working very actively to eliminate the consequences of strike. As of yesterday evening, Kherson had electricity and water supply restored in almost the entire city except for 10 houses. Quote, "We must be aware that there will be more such Russian attacks as winter approaches on generation facilities and the grid. We must prepare for this. We will strengthen our air defense as much as possible in the current circumstances," said the head of state. Zelensky added that Kyiv is agreeing with its partners on such defense steps that haven't been used before. However, a lot will depend on the readiness of local authorities, particularly in cities, and on the preparatory work of energy companies and telecom operators. Quote, "Everyone has to do their job in defense to prevent Russian terror from stopping Ukraine this winter. Just like on the battlefield, we must be as resilient and strong as possible in all areas," stressed the president. Volodymyr Zelensky informed that Ukrainian diplomats, intelligence and security forces continue to work to help Ukrainian citizens who have found themselves in the Middle East, in Israel and the Gaza Strip. The evacuation of Ukrainians from Israel continues. More than 200 people have been taken to Romania, mostly women and children. New flights are being prepared. According to the president, it is known about almost 260 Ukrainians who are currently in the Gaza Strip. The exit from Gaza is blocked for citizens of all countries, but Ukraine is working with its partners to evacuate its citizens. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, and leave a glowing review in the apps where you are listening to this podcast: Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and others. This really helps more people to find out about the Highlights from Ukraine podcast and truth about Russia's invasion. The Biden administration intends to ask the Congress to allocate over $2 billion for aid for Ukraine and Israel, reports European Pravda. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in an interview with CBS that the U.S. continues to supply Ukraine with critically important weapons for repelling Russian attacks. Earlier, the media reported that next week Biden will publish his request for additional financing for Ukraine and Israel. According to NBC News, the White House is preparing a request for additional financing with funds for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, and strengthening the border protection. Earlier, it was reported that the White House is considering the possibility to unite into one request to the Congress the military aid for Ukraine and Israel, hoping it will increase chances for approval of the support for Kyiv. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said in an interview with Ukrainian journalist Natalia Moiseichuk that his team is working to bring IKEA, H&M, Zara and other brands back to Ukraine, reports Fakty. They all paused their activities in Ukraine with the start of the full-fledged Russian invasion. The minister mentioned that McDonald's returned to Ukraine after his phone conversation with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Kuleba emphasized that McDonald's in Ukraine is a signal to investors that it is possible to work here. It was previously reported that the Swedish fashion retailer H&M plans to start a gradual recovery of work in Ukraine from November 2023. According to the media, H&M Group will open some stores in Ukraine at the end of November, beginning of December this year. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just 2 people and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.